Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm continuing my read along for Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. And I'm so sorry I'm so late, I'm really sorry. I can't go into why, but yeah, I'm sorry. So anyway, I'm gonna try and be quick about this so that we can just get started. If you're new here, hi, I'm Janae, I read Danmei live. And we just try and have a good time. I have tea here with me that I will occasionally sip, and we're gonna take a 10-minute break on the hour. Hi! And there was one more thing I wanted to mention. No, I can't remember what. But I went to Comic-Con on Friday, and on the way there I explained this plot to my friend, and it was hilarious trying to explain it to her. I think just about as hilarious trying to explain it to her as it is to actually read it. It was so much fun to try and explain everything. But yeah, we are picking up on chapter 29 for anyone who is following along. Hi! And that is page 299. Okay, we left off with the second prince having like a tantrum over the fact that the fish took the princess's attention from him. It was amazing. I can still not believe how talented the artists that attend Comic-Con are. It was just astounding, and I spent way too much money on art. Like half of it was Spy X Family. And then some Studio Ghibli, and I got myself 2 K-pop albums. So I am broke, but I'm very happy about it, so it's fine. Oh goodness, I don't even know if it's worth it, because like everything is so expensive that I didn't technically get a lot of things. I'm just happy about it. Um, and like, I think that's all that matters, as long as I get things that I really like. Um, But one thing that I didn't get that I'm really sad about is my friend told me, because she attended the day after, and she told me she saw Howl's Moving Castle earrings, and I would have loved to buy those. Okay, let's get started. A courageous, ambitious fish. An expressionless Ye Qingyan set down a stack of secret reports in front of Prince Jing. Ye Shizi was normally very lively, and it was rare for him to look so solemn. When he put the reports down, Liu Ye stopped swimming around his fish tank as well, afraid of missing a single piece of information. The emperor had Ye Qingyan and his father, the Duke of Chang'an, stay behind after the banquet. Ye Qingyan had acted guarded and restrained at the banquet, thinking he wouldn't stand out, but the emperor still chose him to marry the princess of Jinju. Those unbelievable words on the letter were slowly becoming reality. The emperor did ask for the Duke of Chang'an's opinion, but a marriage like this was a national affair, and Ye Qingyan knew well that his father was loyal to the emperor and would not disagree, and thus his marriage was decided upon. But it wasn't life after marriage Ye Qingyan was worried about. The letter stated that the second prince would frame him for killing the princess of Jinju. Clearly, she was also a victim. Ye Qingyan was determined to thwart the second prince's plans. After the second prince was dealt with, it would be the princess's decision whether or not she still wanted to go through with the marriage. Hi. Sorry. He'd kept an eye on the second prince and the sixth prince ever since he received the letter. Since Ye Shizi's marriage was established, there'd be many more people coming in and out of Mu Tianzhao's manor. The second prince was definitely plotting something. With Prince Jing occasionally reminding him to be skeptical, Ye Qingyan also didn't completely believe that was what was written in the letter. The more its contents came true, the more cautious he needed to be. His people soon uncovered the second prince's plot. On the day of Ye Qingyan and the prince... Sorry, I don't know why I'm struggling. On the day Ye Qingyan and the princess was to enter the palace and thank the emperor, the second prince planned to lure the princess of Jinju to Yanyue Pavilion and kill her there. He would then lure Ye Qingyan there too, to take the blame. As long as Ye Qingyan stepped into Yanyue Pavilion, he would find his fiance's corpse with his own sword in her chest. The second prince planned to have someone steal it from Chang'an Manor beforehand, so he could plant it as proof that Ye Shize had been the one to kill her. Can you imagine how unnerving that must be? Like, to discover this kind of plot against you? But also, I'm wondering how the fish is gonna stop. Sorry, not the fish. Sha Ye is gonna stop the murder of the princess, like their sister, because wasn't the original plan for the blame to be given to Chinya, and then it moved to, oh, we're gonna blame him for our sister's murder because that way he gets executed. So how is he gonna stop that part of things? The stage thus set, the second prince would lead a group of imperial guards to Yanyue Pavilion and capture Ye Shize red-handed. In the face of such concrete evidence, there was nothing Ye Qingyan could say to save himself. The second prince intended to frame Ye Qingyan for sabotaging the marriage and killing the princess. It matched what most of the mysterious informant had written. But there were some parts of the letter that didn't match. For example, the letter had warned them that the sixth prince had some part in this as well, and asked Ye Shize to not trust the sixth prince. Ye Qingyan was only able to find out information about the second prince. The sixth prince hadn't made any moves. Compared to the second prince, who was used to putting on a mask around others, or the third prince, who jumped at any opportunity to compete with the second prince, the sixth prince was simply transparent. Even at an important event like the imperial banquet, he didn't even try and scoot closer to the emperor. Ye Qingyan wondered if the letter had been written incorrectly. After all, there were so many incorrect characters, it was a miracle that he'd had the patience to finish reading it. But since the second prince hadn't done as the letter said he would, there was no way to tell who the sixth prince was going to harm. Prince Jing and Ye Qingyan discussed it several times over, but in the end they decided they should still have someone keep an eye on the sixth prince. They also found out that the second prince had secretly prepared arsenic. It was clear that he meant to poison someone, but it was unclear who. At the very least, it wouldn't be the princess of Jinju, because she had to die by Ye Shize's sword, so he could be framed. Oh, goodness. Poisoning would only complicate matters. I mean, he might decide to poison a fish, just saying, because apparently the poor fish has gotten on his nerves. Mm. Liu Qian made the necessary preparations on his end, and the imperial decree was issued shortly during the Dragon Boat Festival. Very soon, he would have to enter the palace to thank the emperor for his engagement. Prince Jing, meanwhile, had agreed to enter the palace with Ye Shize. On the day Ye Shize was due to thank the emperor, Prince Jing changed into a lighter outfit, put on a black guan, I'm not sure, and casually threw on a royal blue outer robe made of cotton with a silver trim. Ordinary people weren't allowed to carry swords into the palace, but since Prince Jing was a prince, not only did he have a sword hanging from his waist, he also calmly shoved a dagger into his cloud-patterned boots. as if he was going to fight the second prince to death. Oh, just casually. This is concerning. Hello, friends. Hope you're all doing well. I'm just chilling at work in my pajamas. Oh, that sounds amazing. I need to catch up later tonight. Something to look forward to. Hope you will enjoy it when you do. And good luck with your work. And it sounds fun to be working in your PJs. He felt like he turned into a majestic eagle, shielding his master from the wind and rain from his position on his shoulder. In reality, his wet. Wait, hold on, I missed something here. Oh, I skipped a page by accident. That makes so much more sense. Leo swam around anxiously in his crystal fish tank. He wanted to go too. Since Prince Jing never got together with the little concubine, the house of Chang'an had no reason to help the third prince. He didn't know whether the second or sixth prince would still follow the plot in the book, and besides, what if there were other details he'd missed when he last read it? He couldn't for the life of him remember the name of the imperial princess who the sixth prince killed in the book. It was only mentioned in a single sentence, so she couldn't even be considered cannon fodder. Thus, all he could do was remind Ye Qingyan to keep an eye out for the sixth prince and trust that Ye Shizi and Prince Jing would work together. If the sixth prince was to make a move, he was certain that they could stop it. All he wanted was to stay by Prince Jing and receive first-hand information. To prevent the worst-case scenario, he assumed Prince Jing would take him, but the crystal bottle was never brought out. That meant he wouldn't be taken along. It would be impossible for him to enter the palace on his own if Prince Jing didn't take him. Leo flapped his tail and jumped into a T-ball from the crystal fish tank. After a few consecutive jumps, he planned to jump onto the crystal bottle that was currently lying horizontally on the table. But since the bottle was smooth, the wet little carp slipped off the bottle before he could stabilize himself and almost landed on the table head first. Prince Jing, with his sharp eyes and quick reflexes, scooped him up and put him into the pencil-shaped tea-bowl nearby. Sob, 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 Leo wailed internally. Has Prince Jing made up his mind about not taking me, since he's not putting me in the bottle? Leo jumped again. This time he bravely leapt onto Prince Jing's shoulder and used his fins to grab tightly onto his clothing. He felt like he turned into a majestic eagle, shielding his master from the wind and rain from his position on his shoulder. In reality, his wet fins soon made Prince Jing's shoulder damp. Oh no. Please tell me he's not gonna have to change clothes. Leo started thumping on Prince Jing's shoulder. That's not what I wanted to do. Prince Jing wiped away the water on his face and picked his fish up. Leo knew Prince Jing wasn't happy. He'd been the prince's pet for too long, and he rarely lifted Leo by his head. He would only do this when something was wrong. Was his master angry? Knowing he had made a mistake, the little carp tried to sweetly wrap around Prince Jing's finger, but since he was held up by his head, his tail couldn't reach that far and only rubbed against Prince Jing's palm instead. Prince Jing thought the little fish just wanted to come out and play. Perhaps since he had taken Leo everywhere with him lately, the fish assumed that he could play every day, but not today. It was very likely he and Ye Qingyan might have to fight against the second prince. Okay, that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense that he wouldn't want to put his fish in the crossfire. Hi. Lol, expectation, flying eagle, reality, floppy, guppy. Sure. I thought you were gonna say floppy fish just because it rhymes. Or like, not rhymes because it has alliteration. Mm, okay. Never mind whether or not it was convenient, the fish would probably be uncomfortable. Prince Jing was originally planning to leave him with Wang Shi, but his fish even jumped onto his shoulder after failing to get into the crystal bottle. It and seemed like he was spoiled too much and had become too bold. Oh no! Prince Jing silently criticized the fish, but now that he thought about it, if he left his fish in the residence, he might become victim to the thief again. Either way, going to the palace would result in getting his people in the palace involved, and he would definitely go to Jing Tai Hall. Why didn't he just take the fish to Jing Tai Hall for a few hours and ask Guangxi to come along? Prince Jing let out a silent sigh of resignation as he placed the fish carefully into the crystal bowl, then changed his outer robes. Leah was thrilled. He was getting to enter the palace even though he had done something wrong. Ah, my plan worked! Prince Jing brought his fish along and met Ye Qingyan at the palace gate. Just as Prince Jing was holding onto the crystal bottle, Ye Qingyan was holding Xiaofeng's leash. Ye Qingyan smiled. I knew you'd bring your fish. I brought Xiaofeng too, so they can keep each other company while we're attending to business. No way! Leo was floored. He had business to attend to as well. He wasn't here to keep a dog company. The way he's so indignant about it. No sooner than Ye Qingyan had finished speaking, Xiaofeng excitedly reached his head over and poked the crystal bottle with his nose. The crystal bottle was larger than the tea bowls, but it still felt like Xiaofeng could hold the entire thing in his mouth if he opened it wide enough. The crystal bottle was narrow and thin, so when Xiaofeng licked the bottle, Leah felt that the dog's teeth were suddenly much closer to him. Even though he was already very familiar with Xiaofeng, it still made Leah a little nervous. Prince Jing handed Guangxi the crystal bottle. Guangxi had already brought over the white and blue porcelain fish tank they used at Jing Tai Hall before, and he put the little fish inside. Leah breathed a sigh of relief, finally feeling safe. Before the day they entered the palace, Prince Jing and Ye Qingyan had agreed to put the Princess of Jinju's safety first, in case the second prince really did end up harming her. But since neither of them were close with her, it would be inconvenient to send someone directly to her. Inspired by the letter Ye Qingyan had received, Prince Jing decided to write an anonymous letter to the Princess of Jinju stating that someone was plotting against her. Prince Jing had come up with the idea, and Ye Qingyan was the one who delivered it. Since Ye Shize oversaw the king and Princess of Jinju's safety, nobody would suspect a thing if he delivered them a letter. It was rumored that the king of Jinju was furious when he received the letter and had summoned his trusted advisors to examine it for the entire night to try and determine the intent of the writer. For the safety of his daughter, the king ordered high-ranking guards to accompany her everywhere at all times, even when she entered the palace to give thanks to the emperor. The emperor didn't know his reasons. He just thought the king was being too protective since the palace was quite safe. But it was a trivial matter, and he didn't want to limit the king of Jinju over this. So, the princess of Jinju was surrounded by 16 high-ranking guards at every turn, and those were only the visible ones. There were probably many more hidden around her. The second prince's plan would not succeed, as long as the princess was safe. But that is what I'm worried about, because that means that the second part of the plan to murder his sister, is more likely to occur because that one is like a, what do you call it? A blind spot? A few days ago, the second prince's people had snuck into Chang'an Manor under Ye Qingyan's secret watchful eye. To give the second prince a nice present, Ye Qingyan had picked a special sword and let them steal it so the second prince would think everything was going according to plan. Okay, that's good. After settling their pets down, Prince Jing and Ye Qingyan started to wait. Soon an aide came to report that a stranger of unknown origin had tried to get close to the princess of Jinju, but her guards had spotted the person and beaten him up quite badly. Prince Jing and Ye Qingyan exchanged a look. They both guessed that the second prince must have sent the person to lure the princess of Jinju over. We should go, Ye Qingyan said softly. It was time to head to Yanyue Pavilion and say hello to the second prince. Prince Jing nodded at Wang Xi, patted the little carp on the head, and headed into the night with Ye Qingyan and his men. Li Ye watched Prince Jing leave. He stopped in his little fish tank, quietly analyzing the situation. Why hadn't the sixth prince made a move yet? Most likely because Prince Jing wasn't with Chu Yue yet, and the third and sixth prince had not yet won the support of the House of Chang'an. There was no need for them to take a risk now. The current situation was just the second prince's one-man show. But Li Ye didn't really understand why the second prince persisted in this plan, even though the sixth prince had already retreated. Perhaps narrow-minded and short-sighted people always made the same decisions. The only thing Li Ye could do now was wait for information in Jingtai Hall. I'm still scared that he's gonna be there's gonna be an attempted assassination of him, of the fish. Just then he heard a light click. Xiaofeng, who seemed to be sleeping near the fish tank, raised his head, alert. It wasn't Wang Xi. Leo was familiar with Wang Xi's footsteps, and the sound had come from the window. Wang Xi was in Jintai Hall, and he definitely wouldn't climb through the window. Illuminated by the soft glow of a candle, a black shadow sprang into the room through the window. Who was it? He immediately thought of the female assassin who tried to kill Prince Jing, and his fish body started to tremble. Xiaofeng, as expected of a dog who wanted to protect his fish friend. This dog better not die. I am gonna throw this book if this dog dies. I will not throw this book, but I will dearly want to. Immediately started barking wildly. The black figure loitered in front of the table for a bit and was just about to walk over when Xiaofeng leapt towards the person and bit him on the hand, causing him immense pain. What's happening? Wang Xi's voice rang out, and the surrounding guards were alerted as well. As the situation put him at a disadvantage, the black figure left the same way he came, holding his injured hand all the way. Oh no, now they're gonna think it's the thief that they haven't been able to find. Wang Xi was very frustrated that he hadn't caught the man, but thankful both the fish and dog were fine. Wang Xi, relieved, brought a box of fish food from the table to feed Master Fish and Master Dog. Please tell me that he didn't poison the fish food. I'm terrified. Xiaofeng's tail wagged happily. Wang Xi put the fish food onto a jade plate, and Xiaofeng was just about to eat some when something occurred to Li Ye. He thought of how the black figure had rummaged around the table for a bit, and a peculiar feeling rose in his chest. He immediately flapped his tail and whacked a blue stone, one of the ones he used to play with, towards the jade plate. Since he used excessive force, the stone knocked the plate over, and the fish food ended up on the ground. Wang Xi was surprised. The little carp rarely lost his temper like this. Master Fish, what's wrong? Bless Wang Xi for actually taking the fish seriously. I love him so much. Wang Xi's gaze landed on the fallen fish food, and he suddenly seemed to think of something. Could it be that? Wang Xi quickly took out a silver needle from the inside of his robes. Nobody would think to test for poison in a pet's food. Wang Xi hoped he was just overthinking, but he feared the worst. The silver needle poked into the fish food, and when he pulled it out, a short while later, the tip was already black. Lia's heart skipped a beat. The fish food was really poisoned. Sob, sob, sob! I was almost poisoned. How scary! Since he was basically the only one who ate that food, Leo was certain that someone wanted to harm him. Soon enough, Wang Xi reached the same conclusion. With Prince Jing away, Wang Gong Gong took charge and ordered someone to put Master Fish and Xiaofang in a room without windows. He personally took up watching outside the room, determined to not let anyone slip by again. I think he needs a raise. Like, I love Wang Xi to an unreasonable level at this point. This man, he deserved the world. He does deserve the world. Goodness. Okay. Um, chapter 30. Fishy first aid. This is how we're gonna get the kiss. This has to be how we get the kiss. I can't imagine that we get it in any other way. Our super servant. Yes, indeed. Sorry, I just quickly wanna, while we are here. Okay. Sorry about that. Ah! Okay, let's try this again. Chapter 30, Fishy First Aid. As for Ye Qingyan, he had also met a person the second had also met the person the second prince had sent to lure him into Yanyu Pavilion. Prince Jing glanced at him meaningfully, and Ye Qingyan followed the person, pretending to be clueless. Prince Jing followed with his aides at some distance so that the second prince's agents wouldn't notice. When they arrived at Yanyu Pavilion, they really did see a woman on the ground, pierced through by Ye Qingyan's sword, and the second prince soon arrived on the scene with the imperial guards he'd prepared beforehand. The second prince glanced at the corpse on the ground, who was dressed in Jinju apparel. Oh damn! Like did a decoy die in her place? That would be really sad. I really hope that it's just a setup on Ye Qingyan's part and no one died. The second prince glanced at the corpse on the ground, who was dressed in Jinju apparel. Mu Tianzhao was secretly pleased, acted surprised, and said, Yi Shizi, what are you doing here? What have you done to the princess? Just as Ye Qingyan opened his mouth to answer, the emperor's bright yellow dragon robe swept into the Yanyu pavilion. This was, of course, part of the second prince's plan. He had privately told the emperor that he heard Ye Shizi and the princess of Jinju were meeting secretly in the Yanyu pavilion. Though he had ordered the marriage, the emperor still thought the meeting was inappropriate, so he headed over to scold them a bit. He didn't expect to walk into a murder scene. What in the world is going on? The emperor's questioning gaze moved from the woman on the ground to Ye Qingyan. Your Imperial Majesty, I just arrived as well, Ye Qingyan replied calmly. I was just trying to figure out what had happened when the second prince appeared. Mu Tianzhao thought his tone was a little strange, but he was certain there were flaws. This sentence doesn't make sense. I don't know if maybe this is a spelling mistake, but we'll see. So it says, but he was certain that there were flaws in his plan, which seems strange to me. I feel like maybe it was supposed to say he was certain there weren't flaws in his plan. He gathered all the anger in his chest and shot back. Anyone with eyes can see what happened. Ye Shizi, you're the one who killed the princess, yet you want to deny it? He raised his hand and pointed at the sword in the woman's chest. This is Ye Shizi's sword, is it not? The emperor realized how grave the situation currently was. Was it true that the princess of Jinju was dead, and that Ye Qingyan had killed her? With a single order, the imperial guards rushed forward to investigate. Everything the second prince had said seemed to make sense, but when the imperial guards flipped over the body, they realized it wasn't the princess of Jinju. It was a woman dressed in Jinju's servant attire. The emperor's sharp gaze swept over the scene. The imperial guards stepped aside, not daring to say a word. The sword was also removed from the woman's chest and brought to the emperor. The emperor was the one who'd given Ye Qingyan a sword, so he had a good memory of it. The sword was extremely similar to Ye Qingyan's, so much so that at first glance the emperor thought it was his. Ye Qingyan, is this not your sword? And you have no sword on you right now. The second prince was confident, and his words were forceful. Your Imperial Majesty, the second prince seems to have forgotten the rules of the palace, said Ye Qingyan, his voice level. As subjects like myself are not allowed to carry a sword in front of the emperor, I gave my sword to the guards at the palace gate for safekeeping. The emperor nodded. Since Ye Qingyan brought it up himself, the emperor immediately ordered someone to fetch the sword in question. Soon, a guard came over with Ye Qingyan's sword. Why were there suddenly two swords? The second prince started to lose his cool. Ye Qingyan solemnly asked the emperor to examine the swords. The emperor carefully compared the two swords in front of him. Thankfully, the swords were nearly identical when viewed separately, but their differences were obvious when they were side by side. The sword the guards brought him was shiny and silver, but the one taken from the woman was as dark as iron. It was just an ordinary sword. It was clear which one was the real thing. Meanwhile, the experienced imperial guards had come to the conclusion that this woman had been dead for several days already, since she hadn't been killed just now, and the sword found in her wasn't even Ye Qingyan's. There was nothing to support the claim that Ye Qingyan was the murderer. But why were the two swords so similar? The emperor immediately deduced that someone had made the murder weapon almost identical to Ye Shize's sword, so they could frame him. He recalled the second prince's earlier claims. This is Ye Shize's sword. Ye Shize killed the princess, but both were wrong. The sword was not Ye Shize's, and the princess was not killed. The emperor himself had experienced many palace conflicts before. Now, even the way he looked at the second prince had changed. Tianzhao, he said lightly, you haven't even confirmed that this woman was the princess of Jinju when you arrived at Yan'er Pavilion. So why did you insist that Ye Shize had killed the princess? Wu Tianzhao was still in shock. Why was the emperor suddenly doubting him? He was just questioning Ye Qingyan a moment ago. The one who was supposed to die at Yan'er Pavilion was the princess. He'd arranged this long ago. Was there someone else? But right now, the emperor was waiting for an explanation. Wu Tianzhao replied with great difficulty. I saw that the deceased woman was dressed in Jinju attire, so I thought she was the princess. The emperor gave him an unreadable glance and ordered the imperial guards to carry the corpse to the second prince. Only then did Wu Tianzhao realize that it wasn't the princess of Jinju he knew, but Ye Qingyan smiled. Is this the assassin that he sent to Prince Jing? Dressed in Jinju attire, but a servant's outfit is very different from what the princess wears. What good eyesight you have, second prince, to mistake a servant for the princess with a single glance. Wu Tianzhao kept his mouth shut. Ye Shize's ridicule was obvious. There was no way the emperor didn't know what the second prince was trying to do. Why else would he have tried so hard to get Ye Shize to come to the Yan'er Pavilion? Not only did the second prince fail to frame Ye Shize, but he was the one caught red-handed instead. The emperor was both angry and resentful towards the second prince, so much so that he wanted to kick him, but he still had to restrain himself. Since Ye Shize and the princess were both fine, there was no need to take things any further. King Jinju was still in the imperial city. He couldn't let the king know that the second prince had tried to harm his daughter. Tianzhao, you can't even tell people apart from each other, he said. For the next few days, you should stay in your residence and reflect on your actions. You may not leave without our permission." The emperor had never spoken so strictly to the second prince before. He was simply put under house arrest. There was no other punishment. Yet Jingyan knew that the emperor would most likely let the second prince get away with it. If he had fallen for the second prince's trap, it was certain his punishment would have been death. Now it was clear the second prince was the one trying to frame Yeshize, and the emperor refused to do anything to his son. Yeah, that is the joys of power, unfortunately. But they had plenty of time. The second prince's attempt to uproot the house of Chang'an had failed, so when the house of Chang'an started treating him as an enemy, he'd have no one but himself to blame. There were many ways to ruin a person. Ye Qingyan was upright and honest, but that didn't mean he didn't know how to retaliate. If someone hit him, he'd hit back. It was only right. He and Prince Jing had crafted the plan carried out today. They had used the body of an unknown female corpse from the dungeon to make the second prince think he had succeeded, so he let down his guard. Okay, I'm glad they used an existing corpse, and I mean, it was also kind of established when the guards assessed and realized she died a few days ago already. But I'm glad to have it confirmed that they didn't kill someone as a placeholder for the princess. The emperor confronted Ye Qingyan personally, and Ye Qingyan didn't press the matter with the second prince any further. Internally, the emperor sighed. He'd already felt something was off with the second prince at the imperial banquet that other day, but he hadn't thought it was this bad. The second prince had come so close to landing himself in disaster. He normally seemed pretty capable. Why had a marriage arrangement made him so impulsive? Did he have to destroy everything he couldn't have? The emperor didn't understand the second prince's frustration, but he was quite put off by the ruthlessness with which the second prince had plotted to ruin the house of Chang'an. Shortly after the emperor had finished speaking with Ye Qingyan, Prince Jing slowly walked in. Seeing his other son, the emperor smiled wearily. "Tianqi, you're here as well?" Wu Tianqi came over and bowed to the emperor. Then, unexpectedly, he silently took out a memorial tablet from his robes. The emperor's first reaction was to wonder why on earth Prince Jing would suddenly take out something like this, and he was a bit displeased. But after he read the words on the tablet, the emperor swallowed all his scolding, because this was the memorial tablet of his first wife, Prince Jing's mother, Empress Xiaohui. The emperor's original desire to soothe the situation over was shattered into pieces by the sight of the tablet. He suddenly remembered whose family the house of Chang'an was. They were Empress Xiaohui's maternal family and relatives. If the emperor was still alive, would he let the second prince get away with this so easily? Oh! Sorry, I didn't mean, that was not smart. But damn. Prince Jing coming in clutch and just being like, just by the way, please remember where your loyalty should lie. That was some smooth work. Not very subtle, but it works. Prince Jing was asking for justice on behalf of Emperor Xiaohui and the house of Chang'an. Ye Qingyan wasn't able to ask for it, but Prince Jing could. Tianqi, I understand what you mean. The emperor rubbed the spot between his brows. You and Ye Qingyan may go for now. Let me give it some thought. Ye Qingyan dragged Prince Jing out of Yanyu Pavilion. What a stroke of genius from Prince Jing. He hadn't expected something like this. How bold. Ye Qingyan laughed quietly, but he felt elated. Some people thought the previous empress's maternal family had nobody to rely on, but Prince Jing was still protecting the house of Chang'an. Well, the house of Chang'an would return the favor. Yay! For Empress Xiaohui, as well as on their own behalf. Prince Jing showed a rare little smile in front of his cousin. When Ye Qingyan had headed to the Yanyu pavilion, Prince Jing had followed at first, but he decided to take a risk and made a detour at Changchun Palace to retrieve his mother's tablet. It had ended up being quite useful. In his opinion, if they were going to strike against the second prince, it was better to strike hard and fast, so he wouldn't have a chance to get up again. It's sad, but it makes sense. Prince Jing isn't stupid, decidedly not. For the plan, reverse the trap, secure your allies, and eliminate any escape for his enemy. That's a quadruple layer kill. Yeah, it's very much a reverse Uno in the best way possible. Ye Qingyan believed the same thing. Someone ended up leaking the news to King Jinju, who was furious that the second prince had plotted to harm his daughter. The emperor immediately summoned Ye Qingyan, the future son-in-law, to deal with King Jinju's wrath. Oh great, poor Ye Qingyan. Ye Qingyan had been planning to return to Din Tai Hall with Prince Jing to reunite with Xiaofeng, but now he had no choice but to stay behind. Prince Jiang, sorry, where did that come from? Prince Jing had no such obligations and set off for Din Tai Hall. Oh, he's gonna be furious when Wang Shi informs him about what happened. He was halfway there when a black shadow suddenly jumped towards him and seemingly without notice bumped into him. Oh my word, how is he, like, the levels of stress that they're just constantly putting me through at this point. This was supposed to be the fun book, the book without any plot. What happened? Prince Jing frowned and looked the person up and down. The figure was masked, so you couldn't see his face. Prince Jing suspected this person might have been sent by the second prince for revenge, so his hand was already on the scabbard of his sword. The person startled, realizing it was Prince Jing, and brandished his own sword, lunging forward. Their blades clashed. The masked man and Prince Jing were matched in skill, but it seemed as if his sword hand was injured. His movements were always a beat too slow. It didn't take long for Prince Jing to knock the sword out of his hand, but the man took advantage of how unprepared he was to hurl a bag of white powder at his face. Suddenly unable to see, Prince Jing dropped his sword, but he could sense that the man was coming closer. He sneered, calmly took out the dagger hidden in his boot, and stabbed him. In less than a quarter of an hour, the fight was over. The masked man, heavily injured, made his escape. Prince Jing was a little unsteady on his feet, and he couldn't make a sound, but he knew he must be close to Din Tai Hall. Oh goodness, okay, so maybe that was some kind of sleeping powder, if that is even a thing in these ancient times. Li and Xiaofeng had been staring at each other all night. Of course, Xiaofeng had also occupied himself with gnawing on things. Is this how the fishy first aid happens? It's not Prince Jing trying to resuscitate the fish, it's Xiao here trying to resuscitate Prince Jing? I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's just excuse it and say that, oh, all the guards are busy dealing with the situation with the second prince, because we don't want to think too deeply about plot holes. Of course, Xiaofeng had also occupied himself with gnawing on things, wagging his tail and poking the fish tank with his nose. Leo was about to fall asleep when Prince Jing finally appeared. Wang Shi, who was guarding the door, was overjoyed. You're finally back, Your Highness. Did everything go well? Prince Jing waved his hand. Wang Shi noticed there was something wrong. His eyes were red and there was powder on his face. Wang Shi tried again and again to ask what had happened, But Prince Jing's eyes still hurt and he couldn't write anything. He kept waving his hand around rather irritably. It was clear that Prince Jing wasn't well. The servant will help you into your room first, then summon an imperial physician for you, Guangxi assured him. Since Master Fish was here, and His Highness usually loved Master Fish the most, Guangxi thought that His Highness might feel better if he stayed with his fish for a bit, so he helped Prince Jing to the room where the fish and the dog were currently waiting. As soon as Prince Jing entered the room, Xiaofeng rushed over, wagging his tail and asking for praise. But Prince Jing couldn't see anything, so he accidentally stepped on Xiaofeng's tail, and Xiaofeng let out a couple of aggrieved barks. Oh, poor thing! Quiet down, Xiaofeng. He doesn't seem well. Li Ye started swimming anxiously in his tank. He was so happy that Prince Jing was back that he didn't want to sleep anymore. But Prince Jing seemed to be in a bad shape. Where was Guangxi? Li Ye didn't know that Guangxi was off summoning the imperial physician. There was light in the room, but everything was still blurry for Prince Jing. He fumbled around and sat down. His eyes were still uncomfortable, so he wanted to find a handkerchief to wipe them with. Li Ye glimpsed Prince Jing's red, swollen eyes and residual white powder. A thought crossed his mind. Did someone throw lime powder at Prince Jing? Ah, okay, that makes sense. He watched as Prince Jing took a towel from the edge of the wash basin and started to dip it with water. Li Ye hurriedly said, "No, you can't use water." If lime powder was washed with water, he could go blind. It was well known in modern times. Yeah, see, this is like I was about to comment it, and now I'm like, I wish I had commented it. But this is kind of where he would seem like he's super smart in their times, because there's so many things that are common knowledge now that would not have been back then. So I love how he was able to identify it so quickly and immediately know that like this is not the way to deal with this. But nobody could hear him, and the little carp swam anxiously up and down in his tank, hoping Prince Jing would see him and stop. However, Prince Jing was busy with his own problems and didn't notice. He wrung out the towel and was about to put it over his eyes. Li Ye wanted Xiaofeng to do something, but Xiaofeng was a stupid doggo. He's not a stupid doggo, I object. And was only reliable sometimes. Right now, he was staring at Prince Jing with his head cocked. He probably thought Prince Jing's stumbling movements were interesting. What should he do? Transform. I understand that it's going to be a messy mess in hindsight, but right now it's necessary. Okay. Prince Jing was going to go blind. He was already mute, so he couldn't go blind too, right? It would be too devastating. And it would complicate life quite a bit. Li Ye stopped for a moment. He knew there was still another way to stop Prince Jing. Even if it was dangerous for him, he had to try. The little carp gathered his courage and jumped out of the fish tank. He didn't mind that there was no tea bowls around, or that it might hurt when he landed on the ground. Prince Jing's back was turned towards him, so Li Ye immediately used his transformation skills and turned into a human. Okay guys, are we ready? I need another pillow, hold on. I'm not ready. It didn't matter how he was going to explain this. He had to stop Prince Jing. "Don't use water," Li Ye yelled. Prince Jing's hand stopped halfway to his face, and he turned around instinctively. This voice. He recognized it. This was the voice of the young man he'd been searching for all this time. Why did he suddenly appear in his room? Prince Jing was about to turn around, but Li Ye said, "Don't turn around right now, please wait." ... Having just transformed, Li Ye was still naked. He looked around frantically, but the remarkable thing was the windowless room Guangxi had chosen was one with no wardrobe and no clothes. Li Ye couldn't be any more embarrassed, but he couldn't just run around like this. He's gonna pull a Ariel and like make do with a cloth thing, I swear, and I'm gonna kind of die inside. In a good way or a bad way, I'm not sure. Although there was no wardrobe in this room, there were curtains hanging from the beams. There was no time, it'd have to do. Disregarding colour or texture, Leah grabbed a random piece and wrapped it around himself. He didn't stop until he looked like a tube. Prince Jing stood stiffly. I mean, this is a lot of trust from Prince Jing, to be honest, because he's allowing the man to do something behind his back while he's vulnerable and can't see, and trusting that this man's warning is valid. That's a lot. Prince Jing stood stiff, not daring to make any sudden movements. He could hear the activity behind him, so the youth hadn't left yet, but it felt like if he turned around, he might just disappear into thin air again. Right now, his eyes weren't in good state. He had to remain calm and not scare him away, Prince Jing thought silently. Leah adjusted his curtain roll, then finally said, "Now you can." Prince Jing quickly turned around, but all he could see was a blurry tube. Leah stood before him and explained quietly, "Your Highness, you can't wash your eyes no matter what. Let me help you, okay?" Oh my goodness. Okay, we are on chapter 30, but I think we're close enough to the hour that I think it might be better to do the 10 minutes now and then come back to continue with the next chapter after. I just want to see here. Well, according to the text, maybe it was mistranslated, but it was lime powder. Yeah, no, that's why. Like, I I didn't even know like what they could get on short notice that would help balance the acidity of that. Yeah, I was exactly thinking about the ancient Roman, the um what was it? S- Sail rope dress that Ariel had. That's what I'm picturing on him right now. Togas. Okay, I am gonna see you guys in 10 minutes, so at 7/8 past the hour. audio is still okay. Sorry. Let me quickly bring everything up again. Okay. Sorry. We were on page 321, chapter 31, for anyone who is following along with their book. And it is Fishy Exposed. Used. Because we have Fishy First Aid, but we didn't really actually get to a first aid part of this. Afraid that Prince Jing wouldn't believe him, Liya put his hands up so the prince could see them. Your Highness, don't worry, I mean no harm. Your eyes are uncomfortable, right? You should take care of them quickly. Prince Jing was a little hesitant. It was the first time he'd spoken to him, but for some reason the young man seemed familiar somehow. Although he thought the young man was a thief at first, that assumption had faded over time, and the young man clearly didn't have any intentions to harm him. If he was indeed the one who wrote and delivered the letter to Ye Jingyan, then he had even helped them. But why did he take away Xiao Ye the first time they met? Prince Jing automatically tried to look for his fish, and Liu Ye was startled. He did have that pillow that was shaped like him before, but it had disappeared, and he hadn't bothered to look for it. So now there was nothing in the fish tank. Would he be exposed? He looked at the fish tank too, worried, but Xiaofeng just happened to be standing in front of it, and he was large enough to completely obstruct the tank. Whew! Saved. Between the dog in the way and the discomfort in his eyes, Prince Jing probably only saw a swath of black. He realized he wouldn't be able to see his fish, so he turned back around. Liya let out a sigh of relief, but Prince Jing still didn't move. Liya was afraid that Prince Jing still didn't trust him, so he latched onto his arm in desperation. Please believe me, I'm not a bad person. I just want to help you get the powder out of your eyes. When he was a fish, he often jumped into Prince Jing's palms, so he was used to touching them. At that moment, he still thought of Prince Jing as his tyrant owner, so he didn't think it was strange to hug his arm. He was more afraid that Prince Jing would think he was a bad person and kill him. Lia's fishiness activated, and he hugged him even tighter. Prince Jing was shocked. He'd never met someone with this little propriety. He couldn't push him away even though he was a bit uncomfortable. Let me try, please, Lia insisted. If it doesn't work, you can do with me as you see fit. Either way, Prince Jing was sure the strange young man wouldn't be able to try anything funny when he was right in front of him like this, so he might as well give him a chance. He fumbled for the table and sat down. Lia wiped his hands clean carefully and found a dry handkerchief. Once he'd made sure there was no water on it, he sat down next to Prince Jing and carefully pried open his eyelids, cleaning away the powder that had gotten into his eyes bit by bit. Luckily, there wasn't that much. Lia worked quickly, and in no time he'd removed it all. Yeah, you just have to be careful to not get any on your hands, because if you turn back into a fish and jump into the water, that could give you burns. Luckily, oh, sorry, I read that bit. He could tell now that it was definitely lime powder. Liya had learned in the real world that lime powder released a lot of heat when it melted, so if someone tried to wash it out of their eyes with water, it would burn them. He turned into a human just in time to stop Prince Jing. The result would have been catastrophic otherwise. And we have some absolutely stunning art, so I do need to share it with you guys. Oh my goodness. It really is giving Little Mermaid in some ways. I'm living for it. It's so beautiful. I can't deal. I hope that my camera is doing it justice. Okay. Leo blew gently into Prince Jing's eyes in case there were pieces he'd missed. Prince Jing was much more relaxed now and could see the stranger in front of him clearly. He was so close that he could see the young man's lower eyelashes, his slightly sweaty nose, and his rose-pink lips pursed in concentration. He felt his warm breath too, and realized that he was blowing into his eyes for him. Prince Jing looked away, thinking it was inappropriate, and caught a glimpse of the young man's bare feet and the water droplets gleaming on his toes. Prince Jing was becoming more and more intrigued by this youth by the minute. His curiosity was growing like a rolling snowball. Meanwhile, after Li had made absolutely sure multiple times that there was no lime powder left in Prince Jing's eyes, he wanted to wash them out with water. He recalled that there was a wash basin in the room, and the water the servants prepared had usually been boiled then cooled, so it was safe to use. He got up to bring the wash basin over, but Prince Jing thought he was going to escape, so he grasped his arm tightly as soon as he stood up. Liu instantly understood the prince's intentions. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I'm just going to get some water," he said. "The powder seems to be removed from your eye, seems to have been removed, so your eyes can be washed now." But Prince Jing still refused to let go, even after even after Li Ye's explanation. Watch and you'll see someday I'll be part of your world. Yes. Oh, that was my favorite song. As a kid, I totally butchered it because I mixed up the English words and substituted some of them for Afrikaans words, but I loved it nonetheless. Um, the prince, whose eyes were almost back to normal, got up alongside Leah, still holding on to him, and they walked over to the wash basin together. When Prince Jing stood up straight, Leah only came up to his shoulder. He was wondering how he was going to get Prince Jing back into his seat when the prince lowered his head, staring at Leah with his dark eyes. That meant he could wash his eyes, right? Leah had finally experienced Prince Jing's stubbornness firsthand. In this awkward position, he didn't use a wet towel to wipe his eyes, and instead scooped up some water, poured it into Prince Jing's eyes, and rinsed them out. After a couple of rinses, Prince Jing's eyes were still red and swollen, but he no longer felt any discomfort. "Just to be safe," Leah said, "Your Highness, please have the Imperial physician take a look later. You may still need medicine." Prince Jing nodded. They stared at each other for a moment, and it finally sunk in for Leah that he'd completely exposed his human form to Prince Jing. There was nothing inherently wrong with that. It wasn't the first time he'd done it after all, but Prince Jing was still holding on to him. He made a couple of attempts to pull his hand away, but he couldn't do it. He could only maintain his human form for an hour. So what would happen if he suddenly transformed into a fish? Fair question. He had to think of a way to either make Prince Jing go away or make himself go away. As soon as Prince Jing's eyes recovered, Prince Jing didn't take them off the young man in front of him, whether he was looking at his face or his attire. This time, the young man's pale arms were exposed, and he was wrapped in a strange cloth. It only just came down to his knees, so his calves were bare, and the movements of his delicate ankles were exposed. Oh my goodness, okay. Prince Jing couldn't help but wonder why this young man always dressed so peculiarly. Prince Jing dipped his finger into the wash basin and wrote on the table, "Who are you?" He had a lot of questions, but this was the first and easiest one to ask. "You would think, sir, but I feel like you're about to be surprised, unless maybe Xiaoyan gives you his human name and like his modern name, then maybe you could get away with it not being like, oh, I'm your pet fish, by the way, if you can't tell by the very obvious name." Oh no, guys. I forgot to put sugar in my coffee, in my tea. This is gonna be a very bitter experience. Oh, okay. Leo shook his head, pretending he couldn't read it. It wasn't that he didn't want to tell him, but he didn't exist in the book. He'd be in a lot of trouble if he lied about his identity and ended up needing to back up that lie in the future. So it was better not to say anything in the first place. Maybe, Leo thought, if I just don't say anything, Prince Jing will become impatient and leave. Have you met him? That's not likely at all. Mm. He was very worried that the timer on his transformation skills would sneak up on him. That would be disastrous. Leo was quite a mess internally, but he still had to pretend to be calm. Prince Jing, seeing that Leo didn't answer, kept writing questions. Why are you here? Why did you save me? See, this is gonna frustrate me because I want them to communicate, and this is taking away at least parts of Prince Jing's voice in a sense, because he can't read, so he can't communicate. Isn't his human name still Fish? I think technically, I can't remember if we found out his surname, but part of his name definitely I think is the character for Fish. Wait, it should be at the back of the book. Let's see. Oh, okay, so his name is Leah, so he doesn't have, sometimes characters will obviously have two first names, well, not two first names, but it'll be like Wei Wuxian, but he just seems to have Li as his surname and Ye as his first name, and if I'm not mistaken, it is the character for Fish. Interesting, okay. So yeah, so that is out of the window unless he maybe wants to be like, my name is Lidi or something like that. Yeah, no, I wasn't I wasn't talking about courtesy names. I was more talking about a lot of names. It's actually quite uncommon to have one character names. These days, it's a trend to have two character names. So like Wu Xian, for example, instead of just Wei Wu or Wei Xian. Um, so I was expecting he might have a second part to his name. Um, why are you here? Why did you save me? But Leo suppressed the urge to talk to Prince Jing and continued to shake his head. Prince Jing frowned. He'd asked so many questions, but the young man didn't answer any of them. Perhaps he couldn't read? Thinking back on it, recalling the letter Ye Qingyan had received, the handwriting was terrible, and Prince Jing had wondered how there could be such horrible handwriting in this world. Was it because he couldn't read? So he couldn't write either? I mean, how do you then still compose a letter? Prince Jing glanced at Shafeng. Shafeng didn't react much to the young man's sudden appearance, so he was probably familiar with him. That was how he'd be able to use Shafeng to deliver the letter. Prince Jing was comparing and analyzing the situation in his head. His questioning gaze made Li's scalp go numb. just as he thought he wasn't going to be able to keep pretending anymore, and was thinking of outright running away. Wang Shi Gonggong, who left to summon the imperial physician, banged on the door. Your Highness, the imperial physician is here. The heavens always provided a way out. Hearing Wang Shi's shouts, Lia's eyes lit up. Prince Jing caught Lia's sudden relaxed expression and immediately thought he was going to run away. Prince Jing smiled. At this point, how could he let him escape again? The imperial physician was right outside, but he didn't dare enter without Prince Jing's permission. Wang Shi walked inside to ask for further direction, only to see Prince Jing sitting casually in a chair with a strange young man wrapped in a tube-shaped cloth. Since Lia was dressed so freely, Wang Gonggong was so startled that he thought the tube was a blanket and almost didn't recognize him at first. He was screaming internally. He only went to summon the imperial physician, so why was some little minx trying to seduce His Highness again? That's so funny. But His Highness's expression didn't seem very angry. Not only was Prince Jing not angry, but he seemed to be in a strangely good mood for someone who was just plotted against. Wang Gonggong, who always made Prince Jing his top priority, thought things over quickly. Actually, as long as His Highness was happy, it was fine to have a little minx in here. He shouldn't have asked too many questions. Wang Shi pretended not to see Lia and said respectfully to Prince Jing, "The imperial physician is waiting outside right now. Would you like him to come in, Your Highness?" Prince Jing did not, but he stood up and straightened his clothes in preparation to go outside. Wang Shi followed quickly to take care of him. Before Prince Jing went out, he took another look at Lia. Lia didn't understand at first. He let out a sigh of relief, thinking he was free and could turn back into a fish. He was still a little worried though, and he walked to the entrance and looked through the crack in the door. The door wasn't closed all the way, so he could see that Wang Shi had set up a seat just a step away from the door. Prince Jing was seated squarely in a place as the imperial physician leaned over him, checking his pulse and his eyes. Yeah, see, this is why Prince Jing felt comfortable, because he was like, I'm gonna guard the door, so there's no way you're gonna escape. But if only he knew. Oh, this guy. Leo turned into a human to save him, not to let him trap him in the room. He'd taken a look at the room earlier and he knew there was no windows and only one door. It should have been the safest place, but it turned into an inescapable prison. Leo turned to Shafeng, blubbering, "Good boy, Shafeng. You're the only one who can help me now." Shafeng was completely removed from the situation and had no idea what his problem was. After checking Prince Jing's pulse and eyes, the imperial physician praised, "Thankfully, Your Highness did well to take care of the situation. Your eyes are fine now, but I will prescribe medication later to improve your eyesight and detoxify your eyes. Your Highness will be completely fine after using it." Prince Jing smiled slightly. He thought the young man had handled it well too. Prince Jing ordered Wang Shi to reward the imperial physician. After the physician left, Prince Jing wanted to return to the room, but Wang Shi thought he was just in a hurry to return to the little minx inside, so he stopped him. "Your Highness, after you left today, someone broke into Jingtai Hall to poison the food." Wang Shi recounted the events in detail, including how the intruder broke into Jingtai Hall, how Xiaofeng bit his hand, how the fish food was poisoned, and how Master Fish knocked over the jade plate, saving both himself and the dog. Wang Shi wanted to let Prince Jing know what had happened, but he also wanted to use this opportunity to remind Prince Jing to be on his guard, since that little minx's origins were unknown. But perhaps it would have been better if he hadn't told him. As Wang Shi explained, Prince Jing's face turned as cold as frost. He was even more furious than when people had plotted against him. When Wang Shi mentioned that the silver needle had turned black, Prince Jing thought back to the arsenic that the second prince had been secretly keeping in his residence. Framing the house of Chang'an wasn't enough for him. He even tried going after his fish. Sooner or later, he'd make sure the second prince got what was coming to him. Yeah, no, like, war is coming to the second prince's abode. Your Chinese last name is Li? That's cool. Fish Plum. Plum is such a cool surname to have, though. I'm just thinking about Cluedo. Jing remembered the masked assailant who had attacked him as he was returning to Jingtai Hall. That man's hand had been injured too. Was it perhaps the same person that Xiaofeng bit? It was probably one of Mu Tianzhao's lackeys. He still hadn't laid eyes on Xiao Ye since he got back, for a multitude of reasons. Xiao Ye and the young man should still be in the room. Ever since the young man helped him wipe his eyes, he had the instinctive feeling that he would not harm the fish. Wang Shi kept calling out, "Your Highness," but Prince Jing gestured to him to wait and walked into the room on his own. Before he opened the door, he had a strange, indescribable feeling, even though he knew it was impossible for the young man to escape this time. But he didn't give it any more thought. He confidently opened the door and saw. The room was empty. Cloth strewn about the floor, and the young man who was supposed to be waiting for him had disappeared again. That's not right. Prince Jing's temples throbbed, not temper. He had left the room, yes, but he had been guarding the door the entire time. There were no windows in the room, so where could he have gone? This had happened several times now. Prince Jing decided it was necessary to change his line of thinking, no matter how absurd. The strange young man couldn't escape, so logically he still had to be here, but most likely somewhere he hadn't thought of yet. Prince Jing walked over to the cloth on the ground and thought back to all that had happened when he met the young man, and he abruptly realized some alarming details. When the young man had appeared to help him, he didn't hear the door open, which meant the young man hadn't entered through the door. Did that mean the young man had already been in the room and he just didn't realize it? Just as he couldn't find him now? The room hadn't been completely silent at that time, though. Prince Jing had excellent hearing, and what he heard then was the flapping of a fish's tail. Xiao Ye often jumped in front of him, and he was certain he wouldn't mistake that sound for anything else. Prince Jing looked over at the fish tank. The porcelain fish tank at Jingtai Hall wasn't as good as the crystal fish tank at his own residence, where you could see everything inside at a glance. But surprisingly, Xiao Ye, who should have been at the bottom of the tank, was instead lying on the edge with his back towards Prince Jing, so he could see his tail flicking back and forth. Thinking about how his fish had almost died, Prince Jing's mood darkened further. He walked over, but right when he was about to touch him, his fish panicked and dove into the water. Prince Jing blinked. He reached out again to touch his fish's back. Usually Xiao Ye would circle his fingers with his tail, but now he only lifted his head and listlessly stared at him. Xiao Ye must have been scared, he thought. As he comforted his fish, Prince Jing kept thinking about where the young man could have gone. It was a small room, and just a quick glance around the room was enough to see everything in it. There was nowhere to hide. A thought suddenly came to Prince Jing as he recalled each place the young man had been seen. Why was it always his room? Only his aides and Ye Qingyan had known that he was returning to Jingtai Hall today. Why did the youth run into him here at Jingtai Hall? Besides, with the way he was dressed, it would have been impossible for him to enter through the palace gates. Prince Jing stood up and accidentally stepped on the cloth on the ground with his cloud patterned shoes. He picked up the cloth and moved it aside, revealing a puddle of water underneath it. The young man's feet had been wet, he recalled, thinking to look around for wet footsteps in his room. Through careful observation, he found some that led to the wash basin and to the desk, and some that stayed near the door. But a path was formed where the ground was wettest. He followed along this path and finally saw a large black-haired dog. Please tell me he's not going to think the dog is the person. Like, he's not going to think Li Ye is a dog. I'm scared. Prince Jing switched to Sherlock Holmes mode. Oh my goodness, yes. Ye Qingyan's dark. The sentence is Ye Qingyan's dog barked, and I just combined the two words. I'm sorry. Ye Qingyan's dog barked excitedly and wagged his tail at him. The wettest spot was right under where Xiaofeng was sitting. Prince Jing was a bit startled. He thought he was losing it. Xiaofeng was the one who made these tracks. Lia stared anxiously at Prince Jing until he left the room, feeling like he was about to break down at any moment. He had no other choice. He was afraid Prince Jing would figure everything out, since he had no way to get rid of the water on the ground, so he'd had to resort to using Xiaofeng as a scapegoat. I mean, it's a half-baked scapegoat, but it's better than nothing, I guess. I'm sorry, the little cop apologized silently to his owner. I didn't mean to hide it from you on purpose. I mean, you totally do, though. The stone-faced Prince Jing walked out of the room. He'd taken the cloth on the ground. On the cloth, a few fish scales shone brightly. This wasn't the first time he'd found fish scales on the young man's clothes. There was another detail he remembered when he looked at the young man's ankle. He had also seen a silver light flash past. He had an idea of what was happening now. I low-key want him to figure it out, but not like clue Xiaoye in on it. Because I just feel like it'd be hilarious to see him like silently know that it's Xiaoye without telling Xiaoye. I don't know why. I just think it would add to it so much. Okay. I'm kind of debating whether or not to just quickly go put sugar in my tea before we continue, because we're at the end of a chapter and I don't have anything else to drink. But it's so bitter. Okay, give me like 2 minutes. I will run. Sorry about that. Hope the audio is still okay. Thanks for allowing me to quickly go add the sugar. Hopefully that'll help. Oh goodness, I just love how you guys broke into Mary Poppins while I was away. Okay. I don't need an oven, right? Bookshelf can go there. I don't know what the context of that is, but totally agree. Bookshelf is more important than an oven. Okay, let us continue. Chapter 32, Becoming a Carp Spirit. Ooh, interesting, okay. Leah had spent the entire day in the grip of anxiety. Now that the excitement was over and he'd gotten away without Prince Jing noticing anything, the little carp slept peacefully at the bottom of his tank. Shafeng, who'd been extremely helpful, leaned against the tank in blissful sleep as well. Meanwhile, Prince Jing was pacing outside the room, and all his weariness was blown away by the cool night breeze. He lined up all the times he'd met the young man. And there goes my camera, because apparently today is just one of those days. I'm so sorry. I thought I checked it. Let me quickly change the battery. Okay, let's see if we can actually get through the last 20 minutes without any more interruptions. Okay. I hope the audio is on again. It's quite a thing to try and keep track of everything. Okay. The fish scales that were on his clothes back then and the fish scales on the clothes now were undoubtedly both from Xiaoye. If that was it, he probably would have assumed the young man had touched his fish. But how could the same fish scales appear on the youth's feet as well? The young man was dripping wet and was always dressed strangely. Prince Jing didn't hear any footsteps when he appeared, but instead heard a fish's tail. He could never discern where he came from or where he was hiding, and was never able to find him. But he always appeared by his side. None of the people he sent from the manor to look for the young man were able to find so much as a trace of him. When the young man escaped through the window, the guards who were lying in wait outside said they didn't see anything. When looking for the person who delivered the letter, the guards posted there told him that only the dog had left the room. None of the above could be simply explained by what he knew about the world. He thought he was quite clear-headed, But he suddenly had a crazy idea. Once the idea formed, it refused to leave, because it was the only way to explain everything. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. That is a very Sherlock Holmes kind of statement. Tianchi, is your house haunted? Ye Qingyan had teased him about it before, and he'd ignored it. Now, Prince Jing swallowed. Ye Qingyan might be partially right. The young man wasn't a human. As for what he was, the fish scales explained everything. The young man was probably Xiaoye. Since the moon was already high in the sky, Wang Shi had already urged him to go to bed several times. With a complicated expression, Prince Jing glanced at the room where his fish was and waved him away. He had to think things through. He couldn't just hold a person or a fish under suspicion because of his own wild speculation. Ignoring how late it was, Prince Jing ordered Wang Shi to find servants from the imperial kitchen to bring him a couple of fish. Since noble consort Chu's cat had picked up Xiaoye from the kitchen, Prince Jing specifically asked for the same type of fish. Wang Shi went off to complete his task, and the kitchen staff soon came over with a basket of fish, trembling because they didn't know what was going on. These poor fish. I don't want to think about what will happen to them once Prince Jing is done with them. Prince Jing looked the fish over one by one. These fish looked almost identical to Xiaoye, but their eyes were dull and lifeless. They didn't flap their tails or look up at him. Compared to Xiaoye, they lacked the most important thing, spirit. Prince Jing sighed in relief. He should have realized that Xiaoye was special long ago. Perhaps because he'd never had a pet before, he'd mistaken Xiaoye's uniqueness as liveliness and intelligence. Even crows took care of their elders after all. He never thought that it was anything out of the ordinary for his fish to be smart. No wonder he always thought the young man looked familiar. It was his own fish. Sir, it's still impressive that you can somehow recognize him. And no wonder the young man had always appeared in his room and entered the palace at the same time he did. Those were his own arrangements. Prince Jing became more and more certain of the truth, but he wasn't sure about what to do next. He had raised Xiaoye for so long, and he'd truly grown to care for him. Now that he knew Xiaoye wasn't a normal fish, Prince Jing pursed his lips. He was the one who saved Xiaoye from the cat's paws, but Xiaoye had helped him several times as well, including saving his relatives, the House of Chang'an. Okay, but now the question for Prince Jing is probably going to be, how did he know about this when he wasn't anywhere near a place where he could have found out about it? Unless Prince Jing is going to explain it away in the sense of like, maybe he heard the second prince monologuing at some point. That's the only thing I could think to explain it that isn't, oh, I read you and you are a book or something like that. Mm. Prince Jing smiled dryly. Who could say who was in debt to whom in the end? How should he handle it? As dawn rose, Ye Qingyan was finally able to appease his future father-in-law, King Jinju, and he rushed to the emperor to report to him. The emperor, however, was feeling irritated and didn't want to see Ye Shizi for too long, so he kicked him out after the requisite pleasantries had been exchanged. Ye Qingyan was so tired that he decided to visit Prince Jing instead and beg for a bed to sleep in. With the relationship as was, Prince Jing wouldn't just kick him out, right? But when he rushed into Jingtai Hall Instead of his normally composed, indifferent self, he found Prince Jing looking uncharacteristically worried. Oh my goodness. This is gonna be interesting. But also, I really hope that, like, the princess and Ye Qingyan get along well, because I actually quite like Ye Qingyan, and I want him to find someone who's nice and will, like, fit into the quote-unquote friend group that is Ye Qingyan and Prince Jing's friendship, and then she can become, like, part of a trio for them. Because I do think Prince Jing needs more friends in his life. He can't just have his fish as much as he would like, I think. Yu Qingyan observed him for a bit and decided to ask him about it, even though he didn't know what had happened. He'd always been quite worried about this older cousin of his. Tianqi, what's wrong? Prince Jing looked up slowly, glanced at him, and passed over the cloth he was holding. Yu Qingyan accepted it, unsure, and weighed it in his hands. The cloth was a bit rough and felt damp. There were even a couple of fish scales on it. Yu Qingyan giggled and said, "Did you wrap your fish in cloth?" Prince Jing paused. Yu Qingyan had also thought of his fish. He turned and ordered Wang Shi to bring a brush and paper, then ordered everyone out of the room. Yu Qingyan thought Prince Jing seemed more serious than usual. Oh my word, this is going to be a mess. So he assumed there was a very important matter to attend to. He held his breath and waited. When he looked up, he saw Prince Jing, concentrated for a bit, then raised his brush and wrote, "Have you ever raised a yao?" This man really wrote, "Oh, by the way, have you ever raised a fish demon?" Prince Jing thought that a fish who could turn into a human was probably not a ghost but a yao, a fish yao. That is to say, Sha Yin was most likely a fish spirit. Ye Jingyan was dumbfounded. What kind of question was this? Ye Jingyan, distressed, replied, "I can barely handle my own dog, so how could I have raised something like that?" He'd always thought Prince Jing didn't believe in ghosts and the like. Why did he suddenly start asking about them? This was so unlike the normal Prince Jing. Prince Jing stared at him, looking annoyed, as if he was saying, "Of course I know you haven't raised one before." After a pause, though, what he wrote was, "How does one raise a yao?" Why is this the best thing ever? I can just imagine Prince Jing being one of those people who just goes onto like a Reddit or some kind of forum to ask these kind of random questions and then ends up with the most wild of stories as a result of it. Liu Qingyan was at the end of his rope. Why are you asking these questions? Do you want to raise one? Stop that and raise your fish properly. Don't mess with things like that, even if you're interested in them. Oh my goodness. Ye Shizi both feared and believed in ghosts and gods, including the Yao Prince Jing was talking about. Prince Jing kept asking, "Why can't I touch them?" Ye Jingyan stuttered, "It's a Yao. A Yao, you understand?" Prince Jing had never met a Yao before, so he didn't quite understand. I figured you wouldn't. Seeing as no one was around, Ye Qingyan leaned closer to Prince Jing and whispered, "It's said Yao are powerful and can confuse the heart. If you meet one, they will suck away your essence. It's written in many novels." Prince Jing considered this. He never read a novel because he thought they were rather pointless. But listening to how Yeshiza was describing them now, perhaps he'd been too shallow. "I love how his horizons are broadening. We appreciate it." Ye Qingyan said, If you want to know, I'll give you some another day. You can read the stories, but you can't dabble in Yao. Prince frowned. Why not? Do Yao kill people? Ye Qingyan thought carefully back to the stories he used to read. The Yao in those books all tricked scholars into marrying them, sucked away their essences until all that was left was a bag of bones, and were ultimately dealt with by passing monks and Taoist priests. Ye Qingyan vaguely said, they probably wouldn't kill you, but they'll make you wish you were dead. Prince Jing was suddenly curious. If they weren't going to kill him, how would they make him wish he was dead? Oh, goodness, this man. This is the kind of person who would test out a torture instrument on himself just to see how it works, isn't it? Ye Qingyan was incredibly stressed. Why did he and Prince Jing have to talk about Yao? Was it a good thing to get involved with them? And why did Prince Jing actually seem interested? The equivalent of me bringing home a koala and asking, have you ever looked after one before? How does one koala? Oh goodness. Yeah, essence as in essence. Let's not go to any other place than what the book intended, okay? Oh goodness. I say as if we aren't 5 volumes deep into Urham. Um, oh no, you guys are gonna laugh. Prince Jing seriously wrote, how exactly do they suck away this essence? Ye Qingyan stared at the notes. He just wanted a bed to sleep in. He had no answer to this. So he made the executive decision to kick himself out of Jingtai Hall instead. Oh my word, that's hilarious. Like, you are making me so confused. I would rather just kick myself out. I'm fine, thank you. I'll bring some books for you tomorrow. Faced with Yeshiz's quick escape, Prince Jing was still left with many questions, and much that he wanted to know. It seemed that despite being the one who'd accidentally enlightened him, Ye Qingyan could not explain. Wang Shi returned to ask him, Your Highness, should we return to the manor? The reason they'd come to the palace was to help the Duke of Chang'an's son out. Since Yeshiza was fine now, Wang Shi thought his master might want to return to his own residence. Prince Jing nodded. He had to return as quickly as possible. There were a lot of eyes in the palace, so it wasn't a good place to have a carp spirit. This man is literally like seconds away from being murdered by 2 of his brothers, and he's still worried about his carp spirit. The dedication. Wang Shi thus ordered servants to pack Prince Jing's things up, but there really wasn't much. The main thing was the little master fish, and this time Yeshi's Xiaofeng as well. Prince Jing ordered, return Xiaofeng to Chang'an Manor. As for Xiaoye, Wang Shi had already put the small carp into the crystal bottle and brought it to Prince Jing, just as Prince Jing preferred it. Li Ye was extremely happy. He had a great night's sleep and was feeling awake and refreshed. He thought he heard Yeshiza's voice that night. Did that mean the second prince's plot to frame Ye Qingyan was successfully thwarted? You didn't get a notification, so let's not count that as completed yet. He hadn't received a completion prompt from the system yet, but he couldn't think of anything else he had to do. Prince Jing hesitated for a moment, but didn't take the crystal bottle. Finding out that Xiaoye was a carp spirit was one thing. Figuring out how to deal with him was another. It felt a little weird for him to tease his fish the way he used to, but the thought of abandoning his fish or sending him away, Prince Jing's expression cooled, and he took the crystal bottle from Wang Shi. He planned to observe Xiaoye for a while after they returned to his manor. He had been looking for the young man who ended up being Xiaoye for a long time, but Shahir had always tried to wipe away any clues that would lead to him. That meant Shahir didn't want him to know his true identity. If Shahir didn't want him to know, he would just observe and wait. He still didn't know why Shahir had come to him or what he planned to do in the future. He could wait to show his cards until he figured those things out. I'm kind of living for this a little bit, because now it's not just Shahir keeping a secret, it's also the prince keeping a secret, and they're keeping the same secrets, and it's kind of delicious. I love those kinds of tropes. Um, hmm. But Ye Mian said Ya would make him wish he were dead. Would Shahir do that to him? Prince Jing gazed at the little carpet bobbing happily around in his crystal bottle. Shahir sometimes turned around and spat bubbles at him mischievously. In spite of himself, Prince Jing found himself smiling from the depths of his heart. Ye Jingyan must have been exaggerating. He could tell that this fish wouldn't harm him. He wouldn't have so easily accepted the fact that Shahir was a carp spirit otherwise. Leah spun around once inside the bottle and floated casually in the water. Ever since they started using the crystal bottle, he didn't have to worry about being stuck in one place, and he could even bask in the sun every now and then. Prince Jing always had a firm grasp on the crystal bottle, and when it swayed on occasion, it felt quite nice. Leah was drifting nicely with the motion of the water when a scale fell off him. At first, he thought his eyes were deceiving him, so he shook his head, but a scale had actually fallen off. He only realized recently that he'd been losing scales a lot over the past few days. Oh my goodness, are we about to find out that he's like doomed for death, or is it just like the prerequisite before you turn into a koi? A carp spirit that has foiled said prince's plans, saved a family member, and saved him from a lifetime of blindness. You dang right, he'll only think about his little fish. True, true, true. He used his brain too much, or he'd been shocked. He wasn't really a proper fish, so he didn't know why his scales were falling off. He'd whined about the idea of losing his scales before, but he hadn't been serious. Now they were actually falling off. He didn't feel anything when he lost them or anything, and it was fine if it just happened once or twice. But would he lose all his scales if this kept going on? If a person lost too many hair, if a person lost too much hair, they turned bald. Would a fish become a bald fish? But he wasn't even that old. Leo couldn't imagine what life would be like without his scales, and he didn't know if he could put them back on. He anxiously picked up a scale. There was a pudgy, tender sort of. Leo poked at the spot where the scale just fell off. It seemed like it was his flesh. Leo pressed the scale onto the flesh, and the neighboring scale also fell off. Ah, sob! Was he suffering from descaling? I'm kind of like stressing now and like wondering what it means if fish's scales falls off. Like, is that actually a thing that happens to fish on the regular and not just under very stressful and like life endangering situations? Because I don't think it's the same as a snake shedding its skin. I don't think those two things can be equated, so I'm worried. Walking alongside them, Wang Shi saw the fish picking up his scale and almost laughed out loud. Prince Jing glanced at him, and Wang Shi immediately turned away as if he hadn't seen anything. However, Prince Jing also saw the scales fall off his fish and thought back to the ones he saw on the cloth. It did seem pretty severe. Even though he was a carp spirit, it made him seem quite pitiful. Pitiful? What was that accent? Prince Jing frowned and gestured to Wang Shi. have the imperial physician come by and take a look at Xiaoye. Wang Gonggong felt like this was a trip into the palace. Hold on. Wang Gonggong felt like with this trip into the palace, His Highness had changed from simply liking his fish to liking his fish an unusual amount. Now only you feel that way, Wang Gonggong? I feel as if it's been a while. Even the doctor he requested had gone from a mere servant to an imperial physician. Okay, fair enough. We are at the end of a chapter and we are at the end of an hour as well, so I think I'm gonna end it here for today. We are gonna be starting with chapter 33 next. This chapter title is quite something. I'm not gonna read too much into it because the last one I thought we were gonna get a fish kiss and we did not. So we're not reading anything into that chapter title. And yeah, I did want to give you guys a quick heads up. I'm hoping to still do the live stream on Thursday at the normal time, but there is a chance that it might be moved to Friday. I'll see how I feel or like how things are coming along, because I have something on in the early evening, and then on Saturday I have my first, and I'm very nervous about it, my first public, I guess you could say, like K-pop performance. So don't know how I will be progressing with the practice for that by Thursday, but I think I should still be able to do the live as normal, the 2 hours at the normal time. I will just keep you guys updated. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys then. Bye.